Okay, what's cool about this bike? This is a 1964 Schwinn heavy duty that's been completely overhauled. The Schwinn heavy duty was built as one of the more sturdy bikes designed for newspaper deliveries and things of that sort. One of the things that makes this an extra strong bike is it was built with 12 gauge spokes. Most bikes have a 14 gauge spoke. These spokes are probably twice as thick as your average spoke. So I don't know what that translates to in the weight capacity, but this bike could certainly handle grocery deliveries or a much heavier rider than your typical cruiser. I did rebuild both the front and rear wheel. This bike was found in a horse barn, buried up to its axles in dirt. So the original rims were corroded all the way through. So fresh rims on this bike. The rear hub is a red band Bendix coaster brake. Made in the USA, these Bendix coaster brakes are built like tanks. So this was completely overhauled, cleaned out, packed with new grease. A simple hub, low maintenance, will last forever. Pedal forwards, the bike goes forwards, pedal backwards, and the bike stops. I believe Bendix did actually make some hubs in Mexico, but this one appears to be made in the USA. These block pedals were in really rough shape, and they still kind of look fairly corroded, but they cleaned up and are perfectly functional. One of the interesting things about these pedals are, if you notice, there's no reflectors on the pedals. That's one of the things I look at real quick when I see an old bike to try and estimate the age. I don't know the exact date, and if anyone knows, feel free to let me know, but sometime in the early to mid 70s, it was a requirement to put reflectors on the pedals. So if you see a bike that has no reflectors on the pedals, that's a good indication that is probably 1960s or earlier. I'll have to say that right now this is one of my favorite bikes to ride. The seat that came on these Schwinn heavy duties is just a fantastic seat. It has got to be one of the more comfortable seats on a bike that I've ever ridden. I have a couple more of these seats actually in my stash. And I added these high-rise handlebars. These are definitely not original, but allows for a nice upright seating position. And I threw on these red forks. These came off of a Schwinn Varsity. I'll probably eventually put the original forks back on. They're a little bit longer than the original. And one interesting thing to notice is that these are drilled out for a rim brake. Although you can see there's a large gap between the fork and the wheel. These forks are designed for a larger wheel, so it'd be probably a little tough to actually put a rim brake on this bike. The bike shows some wear, some nice patina, some battle scars, which I think is kind of cool. I did paint this bike. I actually painted it by hand with a paintbrush and Rust-Oleum black paint. I did leave the original Schwinn logo just for kicks. This bike is completely low maintenance. In fact, almost no maintenance. There's no brake levers, there's no shifters, there's no cables. All right, and how is this for cool? Just like when you were a kid, you want to work on this bike, just flip it upside down. No bike stand required. Flip it upside down and you can easily remove the wheels to change a flat tire. There's really no other maintenance you would possibly have to do on this bike. From this angle, you can also get a good look at the integrated kickstands that came in all these Chicago-built Schwinns. Really nice feature to have the kickstand actually part of the frame. versus when you get a bike today with a kickstand, it's bolted on, the bolts come loose, and it gets all wobbly and scratches your frame. These are really solid kickstands built into the frame. And of course, every bike needs a little bit of bling. The only piece of plastic on this old bike are these axle protectors. Slide onto the axle, I guess just to prevent you from scraping anything on the axle. And there you have it. One less bike in the landfill, one more vintage cruiser back on the road.